care of you if you're looking for a new car. You can shop them online, by the way. If you're still concerned about getting out, they'll accommodate you in every way. And they also have a great service department. They have social distancing procedures in place. They also have a great a little bit of a I don't know if you've ever been in there or not, Alan, but they've got in the morning they've got the donuts, the coffee, the juices.
Yeah, they pull it all out. It's a great place to go have breakfast.
I mean, you basically get a continental breakfast for free while you're getting your oil change. So it's a great place to go down there. Baxley, Penfield, Mouty. If you have real estate needs here in Central Arkansas, they're a great place to go if you are looking to buy or to sell. And believe it or not, it is a great time to buy and to sell. So don't think that just because we've got the COVID virus, thank God it's dwindling out, but just because we've got the COVID virus going on, don't think that the market has closed, because it's a great opportunity to buy, sell. Yeah. And if you have rental property, they can take care of you down there too, Alan. They can take care of your commercial or your residential. If you want to rent or you have property that you want to rent, they'll handle that so you don't have to deal with the public. It's a great option. You can call them down there at Baxley, Penfield, Mouty. And then, as always, Edwards Food Store, a great place to shop here in Central Arkansas. Over there in East Arkansas, as I always tell you, they are clean stores. They are well-stocked. I actually had to go into a competitor's today, and I was a little bit surprised because the competitors, the shelves were not nearly stocked as well as the Edward Food Store. So give them a look, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. You can order online and get the curbside service, or you can also just go in there and shop, and they'll take care of you from the time you come in the door to the time you get to your car. All right. So today we got a great show lined up today. I'm going to start off with Allen Kerr, who is with OneShare, former insurance commissioner, and we're going to talk about insurance, and we're going to talk about the cost of insurance and why it's so high, the rules, the regs, everything that goes into that. And we're going to have kind of a diversified discussion about health insurance, and I'll probably tap you for a few other things just because you're back knowledge.
Sure.
But somewhere around 12:35 to 12:30, we are going to be joined by Mike Preston, who's the Secretary of Commerce here for the state of Arkansas. We're going to get some information about unemployment. Going to talk about a raise he got this week and just a few other little things. And then around 12:40, we're going to be joined by Congressman French Hill, and he's going to be merged into the conversation with Mike Preston. And we're going to talk about unemployment and some issues going on. But we're also going to talk about reopening the economy. And we're going to talk about the great job report that came out this week. And we're going to talk about, some of the police issues, and we're going to talk about some of the things that Congressman Hill is doing in the various parts of Arkansas. So hope that you plan on staying with us for the hour. We got a great show lined up.
That is an issue-packed hour, man.
Well, we don't leave them hungry.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
leave them with a doggy bag to take home. So you hosted Dave's show this week as well. I did on Tuesday, and you came in on Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll keep Dave.
6 a.m. was hard.
6 a.m. is a different time of the morning.
It really is.
Just because I'm up doesn't mean I'm functioning.
Amen to that.
But it had good shows all this week. Had you host for Dave, myself, Robert Steinbeck was on a couple of days. I'm trying to think who the third person was. There was somebody else in there, fourth person. But anyway.
Don't remember.
Yeah, he had a good lineup to kind of back him up this week. So, all right, I want to talk to you about insurance. And I actually had you on my show this past week. You've been on a little bit, but we never really had a chance to kind of go deep on a couple of things. So I want to go deep. It seems like we kind of went through a period where insurance rates were just really spiking up. You were in the House.
Yes, sir.
As a former member of the House of Representatives. We served together in the House, and we were there during the time that the teacher insurance.
Right. Yeah, that was a big issue.
Hard
to deal with.
Yes, and that was actually a special session issue.
It was.
And so we had to come in, and that was, I forgot what percentage spike that was. It was like 20%, some ungodly number.
Yeah, almost 25, 30%.
Right. So what goes into determining the insurance rates that are charged?
Well, primarily claims. When claims spike, that means that rates are going to spike the following year. I mean, they file those rates each year based on their actuarials and their claims that they have experienced and their projected claims for the next year. Now, the more regulations there are and the more mandates there are for coverage, they got to incorporate those into their, the legislature passes these mandates, and then they got to incorporate or project what those mandates are going to cost them for those covered services the following year. Sometimes they the actuarials are going to overshoot it a little bit just to be sure, because those companies have to stay solvent. Otherwise, the insurance commissioner goes in and takes them over and runs them himself. So, and sometimes that's not a bad thing, depending on the company.
And have you had to do that?
I've only had to do that once.
Okay.
Once, and we got them upright pretty fast. So I jumped in. I made some suggestions and made some rulings, and we got them solvent pretty quick. And then I just handed that back over to them, because that was not really a true function of the insurance commissioner. It's not something we like to do. But the more you're required to cover, the more your premiums are going to go up. For instance, when the ACA went into effect, 2008 forward, each year you saw double-digit increases. You saw 20 and 30% across the country. Some of them were 50% based on those things. So up to that point in 2008, insurance companies were allowed to underwrite. In other words, if you had pre-existing conditions, they were allowed to raise your premiums accordingly. Okay.
Without raising it to everybody else.
Without raising it to everybody else. Mm-hmm. In other words, you paid the premium for your health choices. Okay. In other words, if you smoked, if you drank, if you decided to eat everything on Main Street, okay,
or you ran with girls who did. But
yes,
anyway.
Or you ran with girls who did. But I mean, that was your life choice. So why should I pay for your life choice? You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. But when ACA came along, that did away with all the underwriting. Everybody was automatically included and covered. As long as you signed up during open enrollment, then you were part of that. So that money's got to come from someplace. All right. So and if everybody's automatically covered, where's the incentive to live a healthy life? Where is that? I don't save any money for on my health insurance for living a healthy life. Now I spend less in groceries, and I don't have to buy cigarettes. But other than that, there's really no incentive health-wise to live a healthy life, because my health insurance is going to take care of me.
Right. And somebody else is going to pay for it.
Somebody else is going to pay for it.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for it.
That sounds like socialism. But anyway.
Pretty close. I think that was the whole issue with it.
Right.
So yes, those are the things that drove health insurance up. You know, as a 21-year-old person going to college or whatever could get a fully comprehensive health insurance policy with a $100 deductible per year for like $50 a month in 2007. Okay, today that's nearly $300. All right, and your deductible, well, it's $2,500. So
mine's a little higher than that, just in order to keep the rates down.
Yeah. So, and that's really the only choice you do have nowadays, mm-hmm. is how high a deductible do I want? How much do I want to pay? So,
so what would happen if ACA went away?
If ACA went away, things would settle down. We could, people would start having to pay for their healthy choices or unhealthy choices.
But what would that do to those? Because one of the big drivers behind that was individuals that had no insurance at all because they couldn't afford it. What would have been a better alternative than continuing on the pathway that we were on without it having to be ACA? Because it seems like the pendulum swung from one side all the way over to the other side.
And in government, it always does. You've seen it in your lifetime. I've seen it in my lifetime. Whenever they decide to change something, they always go too far. So if ACA went away, we would see, I doubt seriously if we ever see pre-existing conditions not covered anymore, because, you know, it's easy to start a government program. It's impossible to stop one. Ronald Reagan said that many times. The only thing that you'll ever see close to immortality is a government program.
Yeah.
So that was a quote from him. So, you know, but should it happen to go away, people would have a lot more choices. Honestly, the other side, their whole thing was to have everybody covered under one choice, one policy. And
which is a single-payer system, which is socialism.
System, right. And we came really close to it.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I work for a health share ministry now, is because that is another choice for people. It's not have anything to do with the government. It's not insurance, but it's a way to take care of your health needs and pay for only those people who have healthy choices that they make for a healthy life.
Right. Which the Share Care Ministry, of which you represent, OneShare, that was excluded from the ACA. That was, one of the saving graces that happened.
Right.
Was, I don't know who was driving that train, but they did a good job getting it out of the station as quick as they could before it got caught.
Right.
But and
CMS has a carve out for that. Yeah.
Carve out, and we've got a carve out actually here in Arkansas that allows that they can be offered without being regulated by the insurance commission.
Yes, sir.
But do people have the thing
called
I
a
hear,
safe harbor law?
Safe harbor, yeah.
Right.
The thing that I hear that people have a hard time with is it just a matter of years of brainwashing that I just can't feel comfortable going over to that and leaving the stability and the reputation and the long-standing insurance company that has been there for forever?
Well, it's not just the brainwashing. I guess you would call it brainwashing, because society as a whole today is totally and utterly dependent, wants you to be dependent on insurance. The big health insurance companies want you to be dependent on the standard insurance products. Doctors, the providers, because that's what they're used to. That's what they're used to billing, the hospitals and so forth. They feel more comfortable behind the standard insurance. But basically what it amounts to is the health sharing ministries, OneShare specifically, they pretty much invented telemedicine because it's less expensive. They do all these things. What they do is they are basically the administrator to try to get your medical bills down as low as possible. We've had people come to us with a set of $50,000 worth of medical bills that we have worked down by negotiating with the providers down to $18,000, $20,000.
Without it being charged against their credit hit.
Without it being charged against their credit.
A bad debt.
Absolutely. There is no debt after that. The doctor, the hospitals, they sign off on that. We make sure they get a waiver and a disclaimer and a release when we do that, so that the individual doesn't end up with surprise billing.
Do you find it ironic that the doctors and the providers, as you just mentioned, they look to the insurance companies as a stability in the marketplace?
Absolutely.
But yet you always hear about the providers griping about the insurance companies denying their claims or trying to negotiate or cut their rates that they reimburse them. I just find that to be a little bit of a hypocritical argument, that you want them around, but you are always complaining about what they're doing as far as reimbursement rates or denial rates or other things that cut into the profitability of the providers.
Exactly. They're a walking, talking contradiction, no question about it. And what the health sharing ministries do is they're outside that system, okay? And if you ever want to see an example of insurance across state lines or health care across state lines is what I should say, that's the health sharing ministries, because we're not held by that same those same guidelines that insurance companies are.
You know what's interesting? COVID has just rocked our world, and not all that's bad. I mean, all this crap.
Yeah,
that's the only word
people
I can
having
use
to
on the
relate
radio.
to their families again.
Yeah, well, that's not the crap part. I'm talking about all the stuff we're seeing on TV.
Well, that's the positive part I see.
Yeah. So it's ironic to me that everything that they said we couldn't do, that has always been resisted against, now because of COVID-19 and because of exercising emergency rules, that we now are able to see it could be done, like telemedicine.
Exactly. Now it's going to be the standard.
Well, and it should be the standard, because
really
that should reduce the it should at least hold the insurance rates flat.
Right.
But I don't think it's kind of like you said a while ago with government program. Once an insurance company gets their rates up, they don't ever want to surrender them, even if they go in and they can cut costs by doing things like inserting telemedicine where they'll pay the provider less. They're just going to improve their profit margin.
Well, the providers don't want telemedicine either, because you hit it, they get paid less.
They get paid less.
That's right.
And what this is doing is reshaping the model of medical care.
It's reshaping the model of a lot of things. But yeah, medical care, these brick and mortar situations that we've all been used to over the years, they're all going to have to go away. I don't know about you. How long has it been since you've been in a bank?
I'm one of them oldies.
Yeah. Well, I tell you right now, they don't let you in the bank right now.
No, they won't. They will not let you in the bank. I don't like that. But when it comes to my money, I like personal touch.
I do too. I do too. But I don't know if you've ever been to Little Rock Credit Union over here. But for years, the last 5 years, I know of at least, you don't see a live person face to face. You see a monitor when you walk in there.
Well, and there's a bank that was just remodeled down in Benton, and you can forget drive-through. It's all ATM and all electronics and everything, which I don't particularly like, to be honest with you, because I like that interaction face-to-face with people.
Well, I do too. But when's the last time you cashed a paycheck? Most of it's direct deposit now.
Yeah, most of it. And I don't mind that part.
My little granddaughter, 16, she's gotten her first job. And they called
me. Is it with OneShare?
No.
Okay.
No, it's at the pool. She's a lifeguard at the pool in Cabot.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but even the little pool in Cabot, they wanted direct deposit. Well, she didn't have a checking account. Okay, so she had to go down to the bank and open a checking account. Well, they didn't go inside the bank. They were talking to them on the phone outside the bank in the parking lot. But they called me for a emergency contact or something like that. I double checked to make sure I wasn't going to be responsible for the overdrafts.
No, but you can make the deposits.
I can make the deposits. But I mean, it's you can't cash your paycheck anymore. You don't get a paycheck. It's a direct deposit.
So we have reshaped, or COVID-19, one thing it's done is reshaped, which is not a bad thing.
No.
In certain ways, because it will allow for avenues. The one thing I find, having been around the Capitol since 2010, is that when it comes to the medical field, people get very territorial about their areas. They get very protective about their areas, like scope of practice, and they will fight like everything to keep their walls around them.
You have a couple of compadres up there as senators that are very good examples of that.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Anyway, this is going to force conversations, and maybe it will trickle over into the insurance. To where, because how many insurance companies in Arkansas are nonprofits that you can think of, that you could name?
None that I know of at this point. Now that we know Blue Cross is not a nonprofit, that they are a for-profit,
but they used to be.
They might have been at one time.
Okay,
but they just never took it off their website. And when we wrote legislation that allowed me to deny rate increases to nonprofits, the representative that did that put that in there, but just specifically for Blue Cross because they were a nonprofit. So he didn't name Blue Cross, but he put in there nonprofits. Okay. Well, when I exercised that situation, suddenly, we're not a nonprofit, we're a for-profit. And I had them bring me their Secretary of State filings and all that stuff to prove it one way or the other. And they're right. They were a nonprofit. I mean, they were a for-profit. So my contention was, why didn't you bring that up when that legislation was passed? But anyway.
But you were the insurance commissioner, so.
Yeah.
The one thing about a shared cared ministry concept, in your case, OneShare, is if we could get what y'all do in your world, your concept, your approach, and we could offer that to people as a ability to select that as a choice in the event that they're maybe receiving government subsidies to help them pay for their insurance. The firewall preventing that from happening is what?
Well, the firewall preventing that from happening is that health sharing ministries can't accept federal funds. They can't accept subsidies like that. Otherwise, that makes them part of the system.
Which would bring them under regulation.
Correct.
So what's the consumer protection part of protecting somebody that's in a ministry like OneShare versus somebody that has a Blue Cross Blue Shield policy, if they are not regulated? What's the consumer protection aspect?
It's the same as if it was an ERISA plan or a group plan, self-insured group plan. It's the CMS, it's the Department of Labor, and it's the AG's office. That's where they fall under. They do not fall under state regulation, but they do fall under the AG and Department of Labor.
So if somebody has a bad experience, there is an accountability process where any one of the shared care ministries can be held accountable, just like an insurance company can be held accountable.
Correct.
Okay. The only difference is the individual that has the OneShare, in your case, policy is saving the difference between what they would be paying to you versus what they'd be paying to the insurance company.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right.
So
and generally it's the average savings, depending on what your situation is going to be anywhere from $700 to $500 a month,
which is a chunk.
That's a chunk. That's a car payment. That's a house payment for some people.
And is that because of the regulations that the insurance companies are under that causes such a gap?
Correct.
Is it the regulations or just they manage their providers and try to increase their profit margin, and they don't want to let those rates go down, so they keep the middle margin for themselves?
It's a combination of all those things. It's not having to be for profit, not having to make a profit for shareholders and things like that. It's
kind of like a credit union. Turns
correct.
It back. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not having those regulations and not having to do the overhead it takes to fulfill those regulations. It's being able to choose the type of member you're going to have. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's do this, because before we get to the bottom of the hour, I've got Mike Preston coming on. You can stay around for a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. So, Mike, we got you on the line here?
Yes. Hey, Senator, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for taking time out to be on the Kim Hammer Show today. Mike Preston, who is the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Arkansas. I got that title right, don't I?
Yes, sir.
Very good. All right, we got 2 or 3 minutes before we go on the bottom of the hour. First of all, let's talk about unemployment numbers in the state. Where are we? Has it leveled off, or are we still seeing numbers added? Or give us an update on that if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks. And first, let me just say hello to my friend Allen Kerr. Appreciate Allen being on and all the work he did as insurance commissioner, and really appreciate all of his leadership as we transitioned and transformed into a Department of Commerce, which included in that was the insurance department, and Allen certainly had a big hand in setting that up. So it's good to hear, Allen, and good to hear you're doing well. In terms of the unemployment insurance, the numbers, we're actually starting to see a little bit of a leveling off. We've dropped from about a peak of, total continued claims about 2 weeks ago, roughly about 120,000, dropped down to about 115,000 a week ago. And this current week, we're about 111,000. And those are for the traditional unemployment insurance claims. So we're seeing a little bit of a leveling off there. We've seen about 60,000 claims for the pandemic unemployment assistance. So again, to remind folks, that's for the new classification that was passed through the CARES Act that includes those individuals who are self-employed or independent contractors. Of those, we've got about 31,000, or just shy of 32,000, who have been approved and are receiving payments and back pay. About 12,000 of those were denied and recommended for traditional UI, and then there's about 16,000 that are still needing review. And of those 16,000, it's a matter of individuals trying to need to provide additional information related to their tax filings from the previous year. So we're seeing, those numbers are really starting to level off a little bit, and we're hoping that we're going to start, moving in a downward trend the next couple of weeks.
Okay, one thing, tell you what, we got to go to a break for about a minute and a half, and you're still okay with hanging on, because I've got French Hill coming on, and one of the things I thought would be good is try to blend you and him together to talk about the jobs report that just came out, and talk about a couple of other areas of impact, maybe even about the broadband that he's helping get established here in the state. So can you hang on through the bottom of the hour?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, so let me leave you with this, and this is what we're going to come back and talk to and give you a chance to framework it. I was in a business yesterday. It was a restaurant, Riverside Grocery. I'll give them a free plug there, Rick. You're welcome. Riverside Grocery, and was out there eating some of their catfish and good fried potatoes, good healthy food, Alan. That
some of those healthy choices.
Yeah, some of my insurance policy driving it up there. But anyway, and the comment made to him was that he had a lady came in. He had a help wanted sign on the door. He had a lady come in. He said, "Hey, he knew her. He said, would you like a job?" And she said, "Well, what's it pay?" And he said, $15 an hour, which I thought, well, crud, man, that's pretty good, And I think it was 15. It was 12, 15, either one. That's more than I made when I was a kid. And she said, "Man, I can't take that." She said, "I'm making more sitting at home on unemployment." Yeah. And so when we come back, let's talk about that a little bit, Mike, if you will. And one thing I want to also is we had a clause built in there. I can't remember if it came down with the stimulus package or it was something that we inserted during the fiscal session, that we gave them a 60-day reprieve from having to go out and actively look for a job. And I think that window of opportunity is up. So when we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. You're listening to the Kim Hammer Show. I got Mike Preston, Secretary of Commerce, with me now. We're going to have French Hill, Congressman, join us here in a little bit. Got Allen Kerr with OneShare Ministry, also former Insurance Commissioner, State of Arkansas. And I want to thank my sponsors, Everett, Buick, GMC, down to Saline County, Baxley, Penfield, Mouty, representing all your real estate needs here in Central Arkansas, and Edwards Food Store here in Central Arkansas, over in East Arkansas. We'll be back in about a minute and a half. Get a drink and hang on.
Take The Answer with you anywhere with our free mobile app. 1011FMTheAnswer.com, Amazon Alexa, iHeart, or radio.com. Breaking news and stimulating talk. 101.1 FM, The Answer. If anybody doubted how strong America is, look at all we've been through in the past few months and understand why we're still standing. We're still standing because we believe in the bonds that bring us together. We believe in freedom and liberty. And we believe that after all we've been through, nothing can defeat us. So let's cheer as America gets ready to rebuild and remake our lives bigger, stronger, better than ever before. Keep it here to find out how. 101.1 FM, The Answer.
It's true. Difficult times have a way of focusing us. We have to think about what matters most when it comes to our spending, our health care. No doubt. This is why so many people are joining MediShare right now. MediShare is a trusted way to save up to 50% on your monthly healthcare costs. More than 400,000 people have already made the switch. It's pretty obvious why, too, especially now during this challenging season with healthcare costs and out-of-pocket expenses going up. MediShare can save you a lot of money. The typical family saves $500 a month. And MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry that's worked beautifully for 27 years. There are different options to choose from to fit your budget. I'll give you the number here in a second, and if you call, you can get a price within 2 minutes. Maybe now is the perfect time to make the switch and start saving. Here you go. Call 844-57-BIBLE. That's 844-57-BIBLE. 844-57-BIBLE.
Hey, welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. Thank you for joining us on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. My guest today is the Secretary of Commerce, Mike Preston, who's on the radio with us, calling in, and then we're going to be joined here in a few minutes by Congressman French Hill and give us a report, and we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to blend Mike and Congressman together for a joint conversation, and I've got Allen Kerr in with OneShare Ministry. We've been talking about insurance and ways you can save money and why you pay a higher rate, and so we're trying to have a great informative show for you today. I want to thank the sponsors, which are Everett, Buick, GMC, Baxley, Penfield, Mouty Real Estate, and also Edwards Food Store. All three of those. And you can go up to my website, by the way, www.thekimhammershow.com. And it's a very interactive website. Keep a lot of good information up there related to content of the show, but also things that are going on through the week. So thekimhammershow.com, great website for you to add to your venue of things to look at. And if you want to send in a question for Secretary Preston or Congressman Hill or for Allen Kerr, you can go to our Facebook section, go to the comment section, put it in there. Benjamin Bowers, who's always here with me on Saturdays, is monitoring that. We'll be glad to get your question up. And also just want to say thanks to Russ and Zach, who are behind the glass there. They're helping keep us going and keeping everything going smooth. All right, Mike, so when we left a little bit ago before the break, one of the questions or the illustration I gave you was about the lady who turned down the job, even though that was a good hourly wage. But part of what we're realizing of the stimulus package is people have figured out they can make more sitting home. Do you remember what it was that we did, or what's in the stimulus package as far as we gave a waiver where people didn't have to actively go out and look for a job? Am I right or wrong on that, or have I just got a good memory or a bad memory, or what can you add to it?
No, you do have a good memory. That was something that was waived in the height of this pandemic, because it was, certainly difficult, and when people were encouraged to stay at home and not go out and, be in public as much as we normally have been. So there was the fear there that, this could risk spreading the virus even further. So that requirement was waived. What we're seeing now that we're kind of getting back, I don't want to say getting back to normal, but getting back to, moving about in the restaurants and other businesses opening up. Obviously, we're taking precautionary measures to make sure people are safe. But we're going to start making that work requirement again. So that will be triggered back into effect at the end of the quarter. So at the end of this month will be the requirement now. So I think there's one more filing week after this week that people will not have to check on that box. So in the future, at the end of this quarter, beginning this next quarter, you'll have to go in and actually certify that you have been looking for work, and you'll have to verify that. So we're encouraging people to go out and actively seek employment. And to your example, that it is a challenge right now because of the additional $600 per week that was provided via the CARES Act. If folks are, there at that $15 an hour level, it makes more sense financially for them to not be working right now. But that is going to be ending very soon. And hopefully this is going to encourage some folks to get back out there and start looking for work again.
So all the businesses are out there that have an illustration like what I gave that has somebody walk in and, or is it going to be that where people after that, what's the date, the end of this month, end of June?
End of June, yes, sir.
Okay. So at the end of June, will their $600 automatically stop, or how is it that we're going to know that people are not actively out looking for a job? Will it be like the end of the week after June 30th, that if they haven't shown or gone in and shown that they've been out looking for a job, that their $600 a month will stop?
Right. Well, two things here. So on their normal unemployment, right now, they don't have to go in and verify that they have been actively looking for work. So when you file for unemployment, and each week you have to go back in and recertify that you're still unemployed. In the future, going forward after the end of this quarter, there's going to be a question related to, did you actively seek work this week? Please provide examples. And depending on where you are in the state, you either have to provide 2 or 3 examples to show where you have, actively looked for work, put your resume out there, responded to job applications. So that will be back in effect. And then also what happens at that time, too, is that additional $600 benefit from the federal government, it runs out. So those who have been able to take advantage of that, this is no longer going to be around. Those funds run out unless Congress, reauthorizes some additional spending for the what's called the pandemic unemployment compensation, is that extra $600. So at that point, all they would be eligible for is the traditional unemployment, or what they're eligible for through the PUA. So that's going to range anywhere from about the low of $51 per week to a high of about $450 per week. So you take away that $600, and that's a big incentive there for people to get back to work.
Yeah, and mainly if you got an opportunity to go to work, it comes down to a set of values. I understand staying home for $600. I get the economics of it, but also there's something healthy about getting back to work. All right, we're going to have French Hill joining us in about 5 minutes. So let me talk to you about a subject that's kind of created a buzz, and you know what it is. I've given you a heads up on it. It's about the foundation bonus of the $54,810. Now, I went back and did a little research on it, and I've actually sent it to have it put up on my Facebook page so you can see the legislation that allowed this to happen. Just from this goes into effect, or it actually stops on June 30th, 2020, as far as you being able to get that bonus. Is that your understanding, or from your perspective, just share with the listeners a little bit of insight about this situation?
So this, the legislation that you're referring to was actually passed before I came to the state, and part of it was that the governor wanted to look outside Arkansas and bring someone in who has done economic development on on a statewide basis and in other areas and in competitive states. And part of the challenge that the governor saw when he came into the office is that the pay was capped for that position. So through some recommendations of a study that was done, I guess, a little over 5 years ago on what Arkansas needed to do for economic development, one was a pay scale for a top-level executive. The legislature agreed to that and saw that fit so that there was the ability to, have that pay for the state, but then allow for the foundation, which is a private organization, to help supplement the pay, very similar to what is done at the University of Arkansas to pay their athletic coaches, the football coach and basketball coach, who receive some state pay, but the bulk of their funding comes through that foundation. So this was set up in a very similar manner to that. That allowed the governor to recruit to the state, and I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to come here. Part of one of the reasons that I saw it attractive is because they had that pay structure in place, and this is something that would help offset my salary is from coming from the foundation. So as long as the governor recommends to the foundation paying that each year, that's part of my salary. And they also, provide me with a quarterly payment that is due again each quarter. So that's how it's been for the last 5 years, and anticipate it going forward in this position.
So the payment that was referenced in the article this past week, is that the quarterly payment, or is that the annual payment plus you get the quarterly payment with that?
Right, I get a quarterly payment from the foundation to help bring up the salary, and then at the end of every year get an annual lump sum, and that's what's referenced in the article this week.
All right, and that was created in special language that was crafted by the governor's letter and added to the appropriation in the 2015 session. You can go up on my website. That should be up there before long. That shows where that was passed back in 2015. With regards to the job market, we're going to bring French Hill into the conversation now. With regards to the job market here in Arkansas, if I was to ask you, are we up or down in the total number of jobs? Because I know the railroad is all but non-existent. Cameron Valve has gone out of business over here on I-30. They announced to their employees a couple weeks ago. Those are some pretty good paying jobs. The plant down in Arkadelphia that was supposed to be driven by the Chinese, I don't think it ever got off the ground. And then, with the jobs going out, but yet at the same time, I know Amazon is putting in a big old plant over here, and you got a plant. They took over the old jacuzzi building out here on I-30. We lost Kimberly Clark down in Conway. Are we up or down as far as a state with the total number of jobs? And when you add the salaries in there that went with those jobs and that are coming in, are we up or down as far as total salary package, or do you know? And I'll direct that to Mike, and then we're going to transition into French.
Sure. And yeah, we're down. I mean, you saw we're, back in, I guess it was February, unemployment numbers were at 3.5%, and we were at a historic low. We've been in a growth mode in the state for the last 5 years, and a lot of economic development projects coming to fruition, a lot of high-paying jobs come in. We've seen the per capita income of Arkansans grow by about 8% over the last 5 years. We've seen a lot of positive movement, and then you hit this pandemic, and it was like falling off a cliff in the middle of the night. We got to 10.2% unemployment for the last month's numbers. We anticipate the new numbers coming out end of next week to see where we are. We fared better than a lot of states. I think we came in, ninth overall in terms of the lowest unemployment, so we weren't as impacted as a lot of other states. Nevada, for example, hit 30% unemployment. They were the largest, obviously driven by the hospitality sector. So, we fare better than most, but you still never want to see a double-digit unemployment. And unfortunately, what we've seen is that, the trickle down is now starting to hit us more so on the manufacturing side. But for the most part, through the the height of the pandemic, manufacturing stayed open. But then we started to see the impacts of the supply chain. We saw the OEMs and the big three out of Detroit close down for a number of weeks. That impacted the suppliers that we have here in the automobile industry. So we're starting to see those layoffs hit the unemployment numbers as well. So our numbers, overall don't look great. But I think the fact that we are starting to get back to work, we're starting to see some of those benefits run out. We're requiring people to, again, start looking for work. Hopefully we can start to reverse that trend a little bit. And the other thing, obviously we're impacted here in the state, too, in the oil and gas industry. And with the oil, going into negative prices about a month ago, that certainly hurt a lot of folks as well. So it was all around. We took a significant hit, but I think we're starting to see us kind of shift a little bit now and maybe start to welcome some new jobs. I know this week alone we've had some active economic development projects looking in the state, and hopefully a couple that we'll be able to close here real soon.
All right, let's transition into Congressman French Hill. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us on the Kim Hammer Show this afternoon.
Kim, great to be with you, and Mike, always a pleasure.
And also, just disclaimer, we got Allen Kerr in the studio today, Congressman. So don't say anything about insurance you don't want repeated.
Hey, Congressman.
Hey, my friend.
So you were listening to what Mike was saying as far as here in Arkansas. Now, the job report just came out at the national level. Is that an indicator of things turning around with the economy starting to reopen, or just kind of transition from what we're experiencing in the state level to what's going on at the national level, how that's going to translate down to us again?
I think there are three pieces to it. I think Mike Preston's summarized it well, and I do want to echo that I'm grateful to Governor Hutchison's stewardship to not shut our whole state down, so that Arkansans are absolutely relatively, as Mike said, better off than many, many of our fellow citizens across the country. Three pieces. One, there was pent-up demand from being trapped in your cave for 2 months. So you've had people go out, and you see that in retail sales. Retail sales will be out Tuesday morning. I expect they'll be up quite strongly. I think a lot of people are not back to 100% of, say, March last year retail sales, but they're up significantly. And the retailers I'm talking to in broad categories like Dillard's or a broader store category are pretty pleased with what they saw when traffic came back to the store. Secondly, to Mike's point, our big manufacturing folks are responding to demand, so the automotive companies are going back to work. We don't have a lot of new car inventory out there, so that's going to put people back to work in Michigan and in turn allow some people back here. So and then finally, you have over 70% of small businesses are now open, and that's up from about 51% at the end of April. So you have the business opening issue, you have manufacturers going back to build inventory, and you have pent-up consumer demand. So that's accounting for us bumping along the bottom. It's encouraging, but I think we have in some categories, a long row ahead of us.
Well, for my part, I'm ready to just take the lid off all this thing. We move into phase 2 on Monday, which is a good thing. But I know a lot of small businesses in our district that we share in common are communicating that we just need to get the doors opened all the way and let them go with it. With regards to anticipated jobs report coming out in the future, do you think that the trend going into the fall then is going to show a significant continuance of the job market expanding?
I do think the job market's going to recover. I think Mike and I are both optimistic about that, but there are trouble spots, in business entertainment, like he referenced Las Vegas, for example. Even though the casinos will reopen, you have a capacity issue. You have a lot of people who canceled their meetings for the rest of the year, and that represents a big part of business travel. So I'm concerned about that entrepreneur, business person who's dependent on travel or events. But I think our restaurants, yes, our local restaurants will be up and doing, back to doing a good business, our local stores. The other thing I would say, though, is what's contributing to that consumer anchoring is the fact that we have a unemployment insurance compensation system that's been generous. We have the PPP loans that's kept people employed and kept businesses structured to get ready to reopen. And you've had the pandemic tax rebate that was sent out. All that was very helpful, I think. Mike, I don't know if you agree, in the April-May start back time frame and into June, definitely into June. And so we've got to be sensitive to gauging how fast the economy is reopening, how people are leaving their temporary furlough. About 80% of the people who have filed a jobless claim are still connected to their work. They've not been terminated. They're laid off temporarily, and that's how they're coded in the system. So this gets back to how fast can people get back to their old job. And but as I say, I think we're going to have high unemployment numbers for several months to come, but improvement. You asked, is it going to be better in the fall than it is today? Yeah, I think it will be.
All right. We want to save time to talk about the police situation that's going on, but I also know you're visiting some other areas. But let me ask you, as we transition, before we go into those two topics, broadband, which I know you've been working on, and this is relevant to Mike's area as well, because one thing we've realized is with this change, it drove people into, as you said, their caves. But as far as education and looking at starting school up in the fall and the blended venue of which will provide education on the broadband front, where are we, and what can we expect coming down the line with any help from the federal government as far as getting our broadband expanded here in the state?
Well, first, let's thank the state legislature for being very focused on this, spending state taxpayer money, doing the partnership between cities and providers. I think that alone was a fantastic innovation that a lot of states have not done, to allow our municipalities to go into that business, quote unquote, with a partner. I think that's really good. Secondly, the USDA and normal wireline company like Windstream and AT&T money is out there. It's hard to access, but we've certainly allocated billions and billions to it. Now, with leadership from the governor and Secretary Preston, we're working to try to get the state and local contribution under the CARES Act more friendly to making a significant broadband contribution. The governor's putting his money up, and so we're working to see if we can put federal money to work, particularly in the education area. I would say in the healthcare area too, but we've made a lot of progress in health and telehealth and access to patients through mobile devices and through telehealth. What we're really struggling, we have. Yeah. What we're struggling with is at that education level. I got parts of my district that don't have cell service, much less broadband. I've got parts of my district that don't have running water. So this is a super important issue for these young kids trapped without high-speed internet. And so, Kim, you and your colleagues at the Capitol here are absolutely on point to be focused on it, and I know the governor and Mike Preston are too. We're working as a delegation to get you that extra flexibility and federal support that's connected to the CARES Act, because the pandemic is what has uncovered these challenges on hotspots and data distribution and access to those education resources.
All right, Mike, I'll give you 1 minute or less because I want to save time for the congressman to talk about police. You got anything to chime in on that?
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that. And my thanks to Congressman Hill and his colleagues for the support on broadband and for, allowing us that $1.25 billion to the state from the CARES Act. And I give a lot of credit to the governor and the legislature, too, to say, we recognize that broadband is going to be what takes us into the future. We've seen more innovation in the last 3 months than we have in the last, 3 or 4 years in terms of telemedicine, how we do education, how we do Zoom calls and conference calls. And I have a feeling that's going to be the new normal. So on Monday, we'll have a proposal going to the CARES Act Steering Committee that'll be a joint ask between myself and the Department of Commerce, along with Senator Irvin, one of your colleagues, for some funds through the CARES Act to support broadband deployment throughout the state. So we appreciate Congressman Hill working to give us some flexibility to make sure that we can utilize those funds in compliance with the CARES Act. and then we can get these funds out the door as quickly as possible to start that deployment and get the services to those areas that the congressman mentioned that are, severely underserved, and we can get broadband to them so they can have the same access as those in other parts of the state.
All right. And Allen's nodding his head the whole time on the broadband and the telemedicine because of what he does. So we're all in agreement on that. And hopefully that'll keep the costs down. But more importantly, it'll provide greater access to care, which is what's going to get us a healthier state, is greater access to care.
Absolutely.
Congressman, in you got about 3 minutes on the police situation and all of this unrest that's going on. Your comments.
Well, I think we need to know that we need to, again, take a page from Arkansas, where we collaborate in Arkansas. We lead in Arkansas. We don't deal in just slogans. I want to thank the governor for his steady hand at keeping the safe, legal protesters who wanted to express their First Amendment rights and not engage in looting and not engage in criminal behavior. Appreciate our colonel at the state police providing the backup in Little Rock to make sure that could happen. We had really just a few bad instances, but we would have had more if we hadn't had the governor's leadership. The other issue, as I said, we don't want to focus on slogans. We need to defund police. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what.
I don't think they know what that means.
They don't know what it means.
What we need to be doing is talking about how do we have trust in a community between a city council, a mayor, and the police force. We have 800,000 sworn officers across this country in 3,000 counties, I think 12,000 individual departments. This isn't a federal it's a federal issue, absolutely, as it relates to civil rights and violating people's civil rights and setting high standards. You bet. That's a federal issue. But this issue of trust, and is somebody doing a good job or a bad job? We need a mayor and a city council that can work with the police department to develop the training responsibility to run a good department. And if you got a bad apple, you got to get rid of a bad apple. You can't indict those 800,000 men and women who get up every day, kiss their families goodbye to keep our communities safe, and not recognize that, sure, with 800,000 people, you're going to have some bad actors. The question is a management question. How do you get rid of them? And how do you have a trust in a department? And so I really put a lot of faith in how we operate here in Arkansas. We have that tradition. We work hard at it. We don't hide from issues. We talk about them. And so, again, it's a question of leadership. But defund the police is not a strategy, not a focus, not a public policy. And in Pulaski County, we spend millions and millions of dollars to help our youth, help improve education. And we need to keep that work up strong. But we've got to support our families, support our faith communities, and support law and order in this community.
I tell you what, that defund the police, in my opinion, isn't necessarily it's a strategy is what it is, and it's an agenda, and that's all it is a hidden agenda, because if they can defund the police department, and the liberal Democrats are already starting to take away our gun rights, they take away the police force, there's nothing to stop anarchy in this country, and socialism falls right behind that. That's my opinion. But
well, I'll tell you, in 2018, we were all going to defund the Immigration and Customs Service. These same left-leaning people don't believe in law and order. They don't believe in following the rule of law, don't believe in building a safe community. And as you say, that leads to anarchy. So there's no place for that. Just a handful of people espouse that view. I noticed that your favorite member of Congress, AOC, and Ms. Tlaib and all them, they are lead supporters for defund the police. And those are the people that we have to recognize don't speak for most Americans.
All right, I got to go. I'm down to 15 seconds. Mike Preston, Secretary of Commerce, thank you for being on. Congressman French Hill, thanks for being on. Allen Kerr with OneShare, thanks for being on. All my sponsors, Everett, Baxley, Phillips, Mouty Real Estate, and also Edwards Food Store.
101.1 FM, The Answer. KDXE FM, Kamak Village, Little Rock. A Salem Media Group station. 101.1 FM, The Answer.